Today's combo is simple. Samwise is a new 2-drop from Lord of the Rings that makes a food every time a non-token creature enters the battlefield. Cauldron Familiar is a creature that likes food, as you can sacrifice a food to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you can get a sacrifice outlet with the cat in the graveyard and a Samwise in play, you can infinitely sack and return the cat to drain the opponent to death. As a 3-card combo is hard to assemble, Ranger Captain of Eos will be our way to protect ourselves from removal spells because of its sacrifice ability, and also find a combo piece when needed. The list also has the normal Asmo package to fight creature decks, and Steel Seeker to filter the top of our deck when an artifact enters the battlefield. Before this video begins though, I just have to let you know that this weekend of the 8th I am doing modern commentary for the Legacy European Tour. You can find the Twitch link pinned in the comments, and the stream will start at 9 AM Central European Summertime. If you do come along and watch the stream, let me know in the Twitch chat and I'll be shouting out as many of you as I can. The first round of this video goes abysmally. We start off game 1 with a nice clean mulligan to 4. As we do have Urza's Saga, Aetherval and Asmo in the opening hand, I thought this to be the best keep, because if we can draw a third land, then I can try and kill the opponent with Urza's Saga constructs. A very nice synergy here is that Aetherval can be activated on 0 to put the Asmo into play, and the Asmo will get me an Underworld Cookbook. Now I decided to take my Aetherval up to 1 because we have things like Captain Ranger of Eos in the deck to draw, as well as a Samwise that we can't cast right now, but we do draw a second Asmo, a very unfortunate top deck. I'm going to speed up this game a little bit because it is classic 4-color control lines. We managed to find our third land and the opponent leyline bindings the Asmo, and then we get to make 2 constructs. After taking up our Vial to 3, drawing an Underworld Cookbook for our draw step, I go deep into the tank. Here there's many options you can choose to try and either put the Asmo into play and kill the Nissa, or try and build a big board. Here I decide to try and build a big board because if the opponent does have 1 Solitude, that's easily beatable. So I use the Springleaf Drum to cast my Asmo to get myself another cookbook out of the deck. There are also many lines here of maybe floating mana with the Urza's Saga, getting something like a Witch's Oven out of the deck, trying to cast the Asmo and use the Witch's Oven foods to kill the Nissa, but I think this is going too all in and you could easily lose to removal spells from the opponent's hand. There's only so much I can do against 3 Solitudes on a mulligan to 4. What feels rough is that on turn 5 I managed to put the opponent down to 3 life, so we really were very close to winning. We definitely could have won this game if they only had 1 Solitude, but the second and the third were just too rough. Game 2, same thing. I relied on Asmo in my opening hand, and the opponent had a Solitude for it, and then they played a 1 ring. I'm over it, okay? Like, this form of Modern is very boring to me. And things were even looking more rough because in the next round, my blue-red Murktide opponent had 3 lightning bolts to kill me in the first game. At first, I was thinking that this deck is hopeless and it was just going to be a scrapped video idea, but games 2 and 3 were about to change something for me. In boarding, I brought in 2 Grist the Hunger Tides and 2 Nihil Spell Bombs for 4 of the Steel Seekers. And game 2, we have an amazing opening 7. We have a turn 1 cookbook that can discard the Oval Chase Daredevil. This is a great synergy because Oval Chase Daredevil returns from our graveyard to our hand when an artifact enters the battlefield. And the Underworld Cookbook, well, it makes a food, which is an artifact. And things are looking so good for me when the opponent starts off the game with a Dragon Rage Channeler. So I can loop the Oval Chase Daredevil twice, play my Asmo, get a second cookbook, play that cookbook which can also still loop the Oval Chase Daredevil, and I can also kill the Dragon Rage Channeler. Now I'm making so much food, I can kill the Dragon Rage Channeler, and it's going to be very difficult for my opponent to put a threat on the battlefield unless they can kill this Asmo. At first I thought my opponent was crazy for casting a Ledger Shredder into this board and tapping out, but then it all makes sense when they evoke a Fury to not only connive, but also to kill the Asmo. Now what's insane about this for us is that we have Samwise in hand. The additional text on Samwise is we can sacrifice 3 foods to return target historic card from our graveyard to our hand. Well, Asmo is legendary, it's historic, so we're going to make a ton of foods with these Oval Chase Daredevils, and then we can get the Asmo into play and get a third cookbook. So I do exactly this. We loop the Oval Chase Daredevil a load of times, get the Samwise into the battlefield, activate the 3 sacrifice food ability to get the Asmo back, and get that Asmo on the table to get another cookbook. Yes, the opponent could have a removal spell here, but we're just casting must kill, must answer cards every single turn to make their life more awkward. Don't forget, they only have 2 cards in their hand here because they did have to evoke the Fury. From here, the opponent casts a few cantrips, a few draw card spells, and they can't find anything to deal with my board, so they scoop the game. Now while it's nice to win game 2 against Murktide, we've got to win a game 3. And on the draw, game 3, we have a decent opening 6. Here it's clear we just bottomed the Springleaf Drum, and got to rely on this hand to be able to both suppress my opponent's board, and also attempt to combo. Now this game starts off very slowly. My opponent has a turn 1 Dragon Rage Channeler, and I follow up with a Nihil Spellbomb. The opponent then does some things to try and put cards into their graveyard to activate Delirium for the Dragon Rage Channeler, which I eventually Nihil Spellbomb so that they don't hit me for as much damage, as well as I get to draw cards. With an Urza Saga ticking up to 2 and a Cauldron Familiar off the top of the deck, I have many ways to attempt to combo. Obviously I'm against a blue-red deck that plays multiple lightning bolts and counterspells, so it's going to be difficult, and I should probably rely on my Urza constructs first to give them things to cast their removal spells on. And we do get to do that because our first Urza Saga construct gets eaten by an Unholy Heat. With the opponent just hitting us for 1 and passing back the turn, our Urza Saga ticks up to 3. Here there's many lines to take, but this line is what I like the most. I can get an Aether Vial with this Urza Saga so that I can put this Asmo into play. Now I can cast my Samwise so that I can vial in the Asmo to get an additional food. It might have been better to cast my Cauldron Familiar first before vialing in the Asmo, because if the opponent uses a Lightning Bolt on the Samwise, I would still get a food because I could vial in the Asmo in response to the bolt on the Samwise. Hopefully that makes sense, because we do get punished here by a removal spell. So with the Samwise dying and getting an Asmo in a cookbook, I decide to unearth the Samwise back into play and discard the Cauldron Familiar to the cookbook and put that into play as well. After passing back to the opponent, they make a very interesting play. First they consider and then play their Flooded Strand for turn. Now they have a very powerful Fury to evoke to kill my Asmo and my Cauldron Familiar. But to kind of confuse me here, they play Dress Down in response to the Fury's triggers when it enters the battlefield. Then my Asmo and my Cauldron Familiar die, and the opponent plays an Engineered Explosives on 1 and passes. So now if the opponent doesn't have Lightning Bolt, we actually win the game. So I play my Ranger Captain of Eos, get a food, in response to the trigger I sacrifice it so that they can't cast non-creature spells this turn, and the trigger resolves. So now we can just get any 1-drop, like Viscera Seer or Carrion Feeder, that can sacrifice a creature. I can vial that into play, get a food, there's a cat in the graveyard, I can return the cat because I have a million food already, and then now I can just keep sacrificing it to the Carrion Feeder to loop it and kill the opponent. I'm not sure why the opponent played the Dress Down or even tapped low for the Engineered Explosives, but I'll take it, we steal a win. Now to finish off this video, you clicked on the video to watch some combos, so let me show you a very intricate way to set up the combo. After winning game 1 against Mill, because I just attacked them with Urza Saga constructs, we do no sideboarding for games 2. And in game 2, we've got a great opening 7. Asmo is great against Mill just because it's a 3/3 that can attack hard, as well as we draw an Aether Vial to make our hand very good. Now we can start off the game by fetching with Windswept Teeth, because if the opponent does have the trap, they're going to get us anyways because we're going to vial in the Asmo, which will find the cookbook. Not only does the opponent not have trap, they don't even have a removal spell that's great because it draws us a card when it kills the Asmo. We do find a second Aether Vial off the top, which isn't terrible, and also find an Oval Chase Daredevil. So now we can play our Urza Saga. We can use the Aether Vial and the Springleaf Drum to make an extra mana with the Cauldron Familiar. This will let us dump our hand and set up for an explosive turn next turn. The opponent does follow up with a 3-mana Tasha's Hideous Laughter to mill a lot of cards from our deck, but not enough combo pieces for me to be worried. But what does make me worried is the fact that the opponent untaps, slams a Field of Ruin and an Ensnaring Bridge to stop my big constructs from attacking. This actually shows that I misboarded because I should have sideboarded in the Haywire Might. I would instantly win the game here if I could exile the Ensnaring Bridge. After making a second construct and getting a Witch's Oven, the opponent finally uses their Field of Ruin on my Urza Saga to activate the trap that they clearly drew for turn. This mills me for 13 and puts me in an awkward spot. I was planning on vialing in the Ranger Captain of Eos at the end of turn, but then the opponent has an Extirpate to stop me from vialing it in because it has Split Second. So they do get to take all the Ranger Captain of Eos out of my deck and my hand, and I was thinking that things are a bit hopeless here. but things do get interesting when I find an unearth off the top of the deck. This is actually a kill if the opponent doesn't have a surgical or a way to interact with it, and that's because of the wording of the Underworld Cookbook. For 4 mana, you can sacrifice it to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, and I have Springleaf Drum here to have an additional mana. So for 4 mana, I can sacrifice it to get the Samwise from my graveyard back to my hand. Aether Vial on 2, I can put the Samwise into play. Now I have 1 mana left with the Springleaf Drum, and can use that black mana to get back the Sacrifice Outlet Viscera Seer that the opponent milled. Yup, now we have a guaranteed kill. The opponent is F6'd, let's kill him. I just managed to get this video done in time. Gotta go to the airport to get to Italy. Don't forget to make sure that you watch this stream this weekend. I'll be doing commentary. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.